Yesterday, as we were learning the horrible news about Charlie Kirk, first the fact that he had been shot, and then ultimately the tragic update that he had been murdered, assassinated. Sadly and predictably, the political left in this country, personified by Democrats, elected officials, not some randos on Blue Sky, and members of the legacy media, they brought what we expected them to bring. It's going to outrage you. It's going to enrage you. It's going to mystify you. But in Charlie Kirk's tradition, we want to show it to you so you can turn that anger into something positive, and maybe even actually you can laugh at these pathetic individuals who don't have a clue about what we're all about. Let's start with the House of Representatives. Yeah, I told you, elected officials. As traditional, when a moment like this happens, they had a moment of silence. Speaker Johnson gavelled in a moment of silence for the passing of Charlie Kirk. Then Congresswoman Lorena BOOED, from Colorado, asked for a prayer to be said for the passing of Charlie Kirk, and all hell broke loose. See, Democrats, they got a real problem with prayer.
What purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise? Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. 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 We will join prayer right after this, okay?
The sound you heard were Democrats screaming and booing and objecting to the House of Representatives saying a prayer in acknowledgement of the death of Charlie Kirk. That's who they are. And when they keep reminding you who they are, you better be paying attention. Democrat Seth Moulton appeared on CNN to talk about the political rhetoric leading to violence in this country. And he had a fascinating take on this, considering it was a conservative happy warrior who was lying in blood at the moment he said these words.
These groups that are out there on the internet or maybe even on TV actually calling to up the political violence. We're hearing that a lot from the right now. Democrats across the board are saying we need to come together. We need to turn down the rhetoric. We need to stop this political violence. It's shocking to me that so many Republicans are not doing that, not following the lead of Speaker Johnson, but actually following the lead of Donald Trump, who's just trying to, call out extremist left-wing groups, blame this on Democrats. We heard that from my colleague Nancy Mace before we even know who the shooter is. That's not a way to solve this problem. If the president is serious about stopping political violence, then maybe he should start by rescinding the pardons for all the domestic terrorists who came to the Capitol on January 6th to kill cops, to kill Speaker Pelosi, to kill Vice President Pence. Let's have an honest conversation about the origins of this political violence and why it has risen so dramatically since Donald Trump's first term.
Yeah, read the room, pal. Read the room. You may have a legitimate point, which you don't, but is this really the moment to be delivering that message? Well, as far as CNN is concerned, I suppose it is. Amazing. Meanwhile, over on MSNBC, Katie Tur, is she still employed there, by the way, after this performance yesterday? Listen, I'm a professional broadcaster. I do 4 hours every morning on broadcast radio in Washington, D.C. I've had to cover developing stories as they occur. You don't get a lot of information. You sort of have to fill time by repeating news, repeating information. But then they go into the realm of speculation. It's always a bad path. But what you saw yesterday on MSNBC, what I'm about to show you, it takes the cake. It doesn't get worse than this.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea. But
this is, by the way, while we were live streaming yesterday, and there were a lot of questions. We didn't know what was happening. We were praying. We were trying to get as much as we could. But who in the hell on cable news or broadcast news speculates and says, well, you know what it could have been? It could have been one of those Yahoo crazy gun-loving right-wingers shooting their gun off in celebration. This is what they think of you. And then this passes as legitimate commentary on cable news. Katie Tur wasn't done yet, though.
Because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as a justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next.
It's hard to predict the future, but we're MSNBC and I'm Katie Tur, so we're going to go ahead and do that. By the way, this is just, I'm looking at the timestamp here, 12:10 Pacific. So this is less than an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot at this event. And Katie's main focus of conversation is, well, you got to be worried about how Trump will use this to justify something. You know, because he used the rising crime in Washington, D.C. to justify, what is it he did again? Oh, yeah, putting an end to crime in Washington, D.C. That bastard. And she wasn't done. She had more. Katie, how does a network executive say, could we get somebody else up there except for Katie Tur? Certainly we've got somebody other than Katie Tur. I think Katie needs a timeout. But no, this is what they wanted to present to their viewers.
Utah, and the aftermath of the shooting, you could see people running away pretty quickly, as you would imagine they would do at gunshots. The FBI director, Kash Patel, has weighed in on this. He just tweeted the following: "We're closely monitoring reports of the tragic shooting involving Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. Our thoughts are with Charlie, his loved ones, and everyone affected. Agents will be on the scene quickly, and the FBI stands in full support of the ongoing response and the investigation." Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign. And he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money. And really he has become, especially among younger people, right, one of the biggest voices that's on the right now.
All right, I want you to hear what just happened, because it's the perfect tell. And frankly, again, I think Charlie would actually find this amazing, what was just said here, and frankly, wear it as a badge of honor. Charlie, I'm doing this for you, brother. Katie Tur says that he's a divisive figure, right? Without any evidence, without actually showing. Here's the thing. Here, let me outplay their game. Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat nominee for mayor in New York City, is a divisive figure. Let me explain why. He embraces Marxism, which is an evil political ideology that has been rejected by free people for centuries now, because every time Marxism is implemented, people lose their freedoms and their rights, and they end up being slaughtered either by famines because of the central government control of agriculture or other industries, or because the military turns their guns, the government's guns, against the people. It happened in Mao's China. It happened in Lenin and Stalin's Soviet Union. It happened in Fidel Castro's Cuba. It happened in Venezuela. On and on and on. That's what Marxism does. That's why Zohran Mamdani is divisive. Oh, not to mention the fact that he supports the anti-Semitic terrorist Hamas group and says that we should globalize the Intifada. And let's not forget, he's in favor of murdering babies in the womb right up until birth. That's who Zohran Mamdani is. And all of those ideas that he supports and celebrates are incredibly divisive. You see, I just explained why a person of the left, who Democrats and this network, MSNBC, embraces as a hero, I explained why he's divisive. Because of what he stands for, what he believes, what he promotes, his ideas. Did you notice when they said Charlie Kirk was divisive? And Katie Tur then asked her guest, why? Why is he divisive? Did you hear how they backed up that statement? Here, listen again.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign. And he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money. And really he has become, especially among younger people, right, one of the biggest voices that's on the right now.
Did you hear a position, an idea, anything that Charlie Kirk believes or stands for that can be described as divisive or polarizing or make him a lightning rod? Did you? He's a prominent voice. He's aligned with the president of the United States. Oh, well, that'll do it. He has a podcast, and he's been very successful raising money and galvanizing and organizing young people. So, of course, he's divisive. These people are awful, but I got to tell you something. Everything that you just saw from Katie Tur, not the worst thing you saw on MSNBC yesterday. And Katie Tur still has a job. What you're about to see actually got a person fired on MSNBC. Well, we say, what does it take to get somebody fired on MSNBC? Well, we've got our answer. And it came from not a liberal, not a Democrat, from an establishment rhino, never Trump Republican, someone who worked in the Bush administration, Matthew Dowd.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt,
and that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot. And there are a number of...
I don't know if you picked up on that, but Matthew Dowd was basically saying, what did Charlie expect? This is the kind of thing that's going to happen. He had it coming. I just want to be clear here. The most hateful, despicable thing that you heard in the media yesterday about Charlie Kirk did not come from a liberal left-wing Democrat. It came from a never Trump Bush Republican. I've been in this town for the last 10 years, Washington, D.C., during the Trump phenomenon. And I can tell you from personal experience that the angriest, most bitter, most vitriolic individuals in this town when it comes to people like me and other people who support the president and his agenda, the worst that we get are from people like Matthew Dowd, people like Jonah Goldberg, people like David French, people like Bill Kristol. You know, the real Republicans, the real conservatives. Their bile is the worst that we have to deal with. And that's a perfect example. About an hour and a half after Matthew Dowd's words, MSNBC apologized for them. During our breaking news coverage of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Matthew Dowd made comments that were inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable. We apologize for his statements, as has he. Really? I haven't seen an apology. Have you? If maybe he put it on Blue Sky. It certainly didn't get the prominence during live coverage on the Peacock network, nor did this PR statement. There's no place for violence in America, political or otherwise. Thanks for that, MSNBC. While you're at it, you do realize that you keep Al Sharpton on the payroll, right? If you looked into Al Sharpton's past, he's kind of been responsible for some political violence of his own. So forgive me for not taking your word on this, but as long as you keep paying Al Sharpton to be on the air, I think you're okay with certain kinds of political violence in America. About an hour or so after that, Variety reported that Matthew Dowd had been fired as an analyst on MSNBC. But let me be clear here about what the real takeaway is. Up until this moment, Matthew Dowd was an employee in good standing with MSNBC. They would turn to Matthew Dowd as a political analyst to explain to their viewers the Republican perspective. Let that sink in for a minute. When was the last time Matthew Dowd had any kind of relevance in American politics as a Republican or conservative in Washington, D.C.? You got to go back 20 years. You're telling me that MSNBC can't find one Republican analyst to put on the payroll who can actually say something in support of Donald Trump, or at the very least, to explain to their crazy viewers why Trump supporters and the Trump administration believe and act the way they do. You know, like a Trump whisperer. Listen, I know you guys don't like him and I know you guys don't understand, but let me just explain where they're coming from. Let me at least give you their perspective so you don't, other them, dehumanize them, so you don't just sit here and call them fascists and Hitler and a threat to our democracy. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I upsetting the apple cart? I'm sorry. By suggesting that we actually explain the human, basic, fundamental humanity of the individuals you like to demonize every single day. Am I screwing up the business model for your network? Okay, I'll show myself out. You never see one person on MSNBC do that. But Matthew Dowd, he was getting a paycheck from them. Somebody who hates you and hates Trump and hates everybody who voted for him. I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and be so thankful that, oh, thank you for firing him. You should have never hired him in the first place. All right. Now to some more elected officials. Elizabeth Warren here. She wasn't very happy that President Trump made a statement pointing out the violent, dangerous, dehumanizing rhetoric of the left. So what was her reasoned and rational response?
Oh, please. Right. Why don't you start with the President of the United States? Right? And every ugly meme he has posted and every ugly word.
Yeah, that's the taking the high road there, isn't it? As Charlie Kirk's widow is grieving. Honestly, Elizabeth Warren, if you don't like what the president said, why don't you say, you know what, guys, I know that you're in the news business, but today's not the day. If you want, maybe I'll show up on your Sunday show, but I'm going to let the family grieve in peace. No, we can't do that. Jen Psaki also very concerned about the president pointing out violent, dehumanizing rhetoric on the left. Understand that Donald Trump and his family have been called Hitler for a decade, and he has already suffered 2 assassination attempts, and now a friend of his has been slaughtered at the age of 31. So forgive him if he wants to point out the fact that by dehumanizing individuals and saying that because of what their political ideas are, they are a threat to the existence of our nation, that he's a little defensive and a little angry that you actually took one of us out. But Jen Psaki sees what the real problem here is. It's Donald Trump for noticing.
But he put out a 4-minute video, and I'm not going to play the video. I don't want to play the video. But there was a line at the end that I think I just wanted to raise and read. At the end of this 4-minute video, he says, "For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now." And obviously, there's a lot of rhetoric that is problematic. A lot of it is coming from one particular side and from one particular building. But what can be done? I fear when this is an escalation already in less than 24 hours of this shooting.
Yeah, I think historically presidents have looked for opportunities to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right now we need a president that'll bring the country together and not try to further, divide us.
Yeah, he wasn't dividing us. He was actually bringing us together by pointing out what is dividing us, which is your rhetoric. And they don't even get that. By the way, did you notice something really important at the very beginning of this?
But he put out a 4-minute video, and I'm not going to play the video. I don't want to play the video. But
they're a news network. They're covering the story of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The president of the United States put out a 4-minute video from the Oval Office addressing the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And they're not going to play it for their viewers. They don't want to play it for their viewers. Oh, they'll quote one sentence from it, take it out of context, distort it, and then turn it into some talking point that they can use to suggest that the president is dividing us. But the last thing they're going to do is actually show their viewers the news, because they're not in the news business. They haven't been for a long, long time. J.B. Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois and has been making noise that he's going to run for president in 2028, he decided to chime in on the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the discussion over the left's political rhetoric in America. Let's see what he had to say.
My sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody. I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who did it. I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of political violence.
There you go. Charlie Kirk. So sad. I send my sympathy to the family who's in mourning, but let's face it, he had it coming because of January 6th. These are awful people. This morning on C-SPAN, they did their usual open telephone lines where people could call in and express their opinion about news and events. And yes, this is just a random sampling, but let's see what's going on out there in the hinterlands of people who watch MSNBC and CNN and spend their time on Blue Sky. What's on their mind?
Hi, good morning. Well, first I want to start out by sending to the Kirk family the same condolences and support that they sent other school shooting victims in the past. I hope that they get the exact same sympathy that they sent out for those people. And also I want to call out the great uniter, Trump, for go ahead and preemptively blaming the left and some liberal when we don't know who did this yet. And also I want to thank him for extending to Kirk the same reverence and support that he did for Melissa Hortman when she was shot. Like when he lowered the flag to half-mast, when he tweeted about her, when he called and was supportive for her. Oh, wait, he wasn't? The great uniter wasn't supportive of an assassination victim when it wasn't on his team? Wow, color me surprised. Also, I just want to point out that I want the same empathy for Mr. Kirk that he supported. Oh, wait, he thought empathy was weakness. He thought that some gun deaths were worth it for the Second Amendment. You know what? You can't prove him wrong because he proved himself right by being a victim of a school shooting and gun violence that he loves so much.
It's okay to be angry. It's okay. You have every right to be angry. Soak it in. Don Lemon desperate for attention, took his camera to the streets and started asking New Yorkers about gun control after the shooting of Charlie Kirk.
You yelled at me.
I did.
Do you know Charlie Kirk?
No, I don't.
Charlie Kirk is the Turning Point USA. He's a very conservative right-wing activist. He was shot today at a college gathering in Utah and killed.
I'm disheartened by that because he's a human being. I don't condone the death or any killing of anyone. That's wrong.
Regardless of their political views.
Regardless of their political views, we're all humans.
What should we do about guns?
We definitely need to have gun control so that we can eliminate violence.
You think this will make a difference?
Absolutely.
You do?
I do, because the attention is here. I think and I hope that it will allow people to take it more seriously and do something about it.
Don Lemon's a joke, and you should laugh at him, and there's plenty of material.
Do you know Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, I do.
And what do you think of what happened to him?
You know, sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. I hate to celebrate someone's death, but when you talk about guns rights and you talk about how much the Second Amendment matters to you and then it impacts you, like, what do you expect, you know? Sympathies to his family, but this is why we need gun control.
One of my friends said on social media, he died in a world that he wanted.
Yeah, he said it himself, right? There's a whole quote that's been floating around about, like, sacrifices were made for the Second Amendment to still exist, or something along those lines, right? It's an ad-lib, but yeah, this is what happens. You reap what you sow, and, you know, it's sad that someone died, but also, hey, you know?
What do you say to people who might say that you're unsympathetic and you need to be more human about it?
I don't know. Reread slavery, rewatch Roots. There are so many different eras of American history in America where worse things have happened to people. You know, and we've turned a blind eye. You want us to erase the Confederacy. You want us to erase all these different things. But why should I have more sympathy for someone that you don't know pain, really? If this is the worst thing you could think of, you don't understand what other people have gone through.
Okay, I can't take any more of the nervous laughter from that idiot, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of a taste and a little bit of flavor of the direction that the left took yesterday. I know you don't enjoy it, but it's also one of the reasons why you come here. We watch this and digest it all and then give you little snippets so that you don't have to. And it's good to know what's being discussed over there. But hey, let's face it, Don Lemon has been fired from CNN, and he's got a Substack, and he's got a friend with a camera and his microphone on the streets of New York. It's meaningless. It's pathetic. It doesn't matter. Well, how about CBS News? Their morning show today. Former football star Nate Burleson, who now is one of the journalists, is that what they're calling it? He had former Speaker Kevin McCarthy on to talk about this.
Tony mentioned not everyone took to his words or his rhetoric. You know, at times they were offensive to specific communities. But with that said, this is not the time to focus on that. We are focused on this tragedy. Speaking of this tragedy, is this a moment for your party to reflect on political violence? Is it a moment for us to think about the responsibility of our political leaders and their voices and what it does to the masses as they get lost in misinformation or disinformation that turns in and spills into political violence?
I say both parties.
I just marvel at the editorial choices at these networks. This is a major network, it's CBS News. And they decide that just 16 hours after the assassination of Charlie Kirk at the age of 31, they decide that the direction the conversation needs to take this morning is to bring in a Republican, the former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and say, hey, a prominent Republican voice has been assassinated, murdered in cold blood at the age of 31. Is this a good time for you Republicans to watch your mouth so it doesn't happen again? I'm so glad you watch us here instead of watching them there. They don't deserve your attention other than the mocking, ridicule, and derision that we will deliver. And we will continue to do it. Unafraid, unbowed. We'll be back tomorrow.